Commissioners meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Carter.
Here.
Huffman. Here. Modis Castillo.
Here.
McGuire.
Here.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Here.
McDonough.
Here, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Before I ask approval of the agenda, we want to amend it. Item number 12, which is under the policy item, should be in the administrative agenda. So if I can get an approval to move the agenda as amended. We have motion and a second. Roll call.
Carter.
Yes.
Huffman.
Aye.
Modis Castillo.
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
McDonough.
Aye. Next item is to approve the minutes from March 19th, please.
So moved. Second.
We have motion second. Any corrections? Roll call.
Carter.
Yes.
Huffman.
Aye.
Modis Castillo.
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
McDonough.
Aye. Commissioner Carter, you have the administrative items.
Thank you. I'd like to move the following administrative items and one that appears on the policy agenda. And that is administrative item number 5, 6, 7, 8,
I'd like to pull number 8.
9, 10, and going to what is now administrative item 12.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to pull number 12 briefly.
We have a motion and a second.
So move. What do you need, a second?
Tony, yep, got the second. Like I missed your comment. Did you
I'm
have?
going to pull number 12.
You want to pull 12?
Yes.
All right,
Thank
so
you.
8 and 12 are pulled. Motion by Commissioner Carter, second by Commissioner Ortega. Roll call, please.
Carter.
Yes.
Huffman.
Aye.
Modis Castillo.
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
McDonough.
Aye. Item number 8 is the Technology Application Program 2019 project allocations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
I
Oh,
second.
sorry. I got these hearing aids, man, and like, life has changed for me, and I'm not sure if I'm hearing better or not.
Well, it was very quiet. It was very quiet.
And if you see a weird face, because now my phone rings in my head, even when I have it on silent, so I'll be having these conversations, and all of a sudden, it's like, I can't figure out how to not have that happen yet. Commissioner Mattis Castillo, item number 8.
Yeah, I just thought maybe this is a really detailed and long, and for my edification, I just wondered if we could have staff give an overview of this process.
Perfect.
For information
County
technology.
Manager O'Connor.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mattis Castillo, thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about our Technology Application Fund and program, talk a little bit about the broader work that happens throughout an entire year to develop a technology program. I'm going to invite up Rich Christensen. Rich, you may recall, joined us right around January 1st of this year as our new CIO, and so he will be with us for the foreseeable future, leading great work in this area, had been working with the county at times in the past as in a consulting role. So he has also had some understanding of big technology projects in Ramsey County to begin with. I'm gonna let Rich take a shot at explaining some of it and the residents' first implications for this work, and then I'll wrap it up.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. First, I'd just like to say it's just great to be part of the team. I'm ecstatic to be here. Grateful, thankful for the opportunity. So with that, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'll give a little bit of context and an overview related to the Technology Application Program, RBA. All right, so this Technology Application Program, which we affectionately call TAP, been going on for a number of years now, where we really take a holistic view of technology-related initiatives that are coming forward across the entire county. And then we look at ways to, kind of bring a level of rigor to that process to say, how do we look at these technologies? How do we find the common ground? And then bring them through a process that's overseen by our project management office with Heidi Evanson. And it's a journey, right? This is something starts in the fall each year. So in 2018, we started the process with the call out to the community, or the internal community, and then taking those things starts out as a list and becomes projects with some sort of form and scope to them, and then goes through a winnowing process where we look for synergies, overlaps, do we have the capacity to move forward, et cetera, so that we come down to a point where we have a list that would be something we'd want to bring forward. Okay, so that process culminates in a TAP Q&A day in January, where the Technology Governance Committee sits with all the different project sponsors and reviews these in whole, and then makes decisions, recommendations from that. And so since I mentioned Technology Governance Committee, TGC, I'll just take 2 seconds to mention the names of the people on the committee. Tara Bach, Gail Blackstone, Jill Baldenau, Lee Merkins, Mike Piram, Karen Saltis, Jennifer Schuster-Yeager, Eric Willems, Dan Winnick, and then myself, I chair the Technology Governance Committee. So I give you a little bit of context on that front, okay? So from that process, now we've been through the TAP process, we go into the Technology Application Funding component of it, which we call TAF. And if you're really in the middle of this, we now have a double acronym of TAP-TAF. So that's where we're at that point. And from there, we look at the funding sources and the prioritization of the projects and come out with the list that you see before you, which is a $9.93 million roughly request for 2019 projects. So with that, I'll just give you a couple examples. There are 15 major projects involved in this, and I'll give a couple samples through that. One is around enterprise modernization, which actually now encompasses 5 of the 15 initiatives. So we found that looking at the projects more holistically from an organization and process and technology point of view, bringing the modernization kind of methodology to these, we get a more rapid set of outcomes. And there are a number of modernization efforts happening around the county, and the decision was made to bring that under enterprise modernization and look even more holistically. I think it helps us, race towards resident first when we look at these initiatives with a, cross-county perspective. So that's the process that we're using across, for example, the tax system. We will be implementing a new property tax system, a multi-year effort to do that. We have a vendor selected and are in the initial stages to move to a new property tax system, and that's a highly integrated system with the assessor's office, with cashiering, right? So this is a major initiative for us, and the modernization effort is what brings kind of that, more strategic look at our risk and how do we mitigate risk. Can we do cashiering before tax so that we take that out of the picture, right? So it gives us that ability to look holistically. And then another example would be the probation system in community corrections, where we're looking to bring a level of stability and flexibility and really quite a level of simplification to that system and set of processes around it. So those are examples within the enterprise modernization arena. Another one that I would mention sounds mundane, county-wide enterprise ticketing, but it's another reflection of us moving towards better serving our customers either internally or externally, with the ability to manage through this ticketing system and understand what kind of issues are coming to us, how well are we doing in solving them, are we meeting our service level goals, our objectives. And this started in IS as a service desk type of tool, is now expanding out into multiple different departments and service teams within the county as a way, as I mentioned, to really get out in front of how well we're doing in meeting our goals and commitments. All right, so that's another example. So that's a couple examples within the program, and then I would just wrap up. We also have some RBA language addition in the RBA that when you look at these multi-year initiatives that we're talking about here and the amount of investment we're making into it, into a new technology application, integrating it with state systems, et cetera, we get through a 5-year cycle very rapidly, and this RBA allows us to extend and modify those contracts so that we could, go for another period of time with that vendor and get the full return on our investment that we're looking for. And that's not done lightly. That's overseen with a new process that the Technology Governance Committee oversees, where we would do the due diligence and the market analysis, decide whether we really want to extend a contract and modify it if there's something that's been added from the vendor, or if we want to re-RFP. So in a nutshell, that's the technology application RBA.
Perfect. Commissioner Mattis Castillo.
Yes, thank you for this work. It's incredibly complicated, but I commend the staff and the team that's working. You know, our community expects us to be ready and accessible, and that modernization is incredibly important. It's also very expensive, and so I appreciate the amount of due diligence that's going through. What I'm wondering is, because it is such a huge process and we have a lot of work to do, is that if there could be a potential that you come back to us in a year and share with us what, you know, improvements have been made, where we are in the process, especially given the large amount of money that will go into it, and if there is additional work that needs to be done.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Commissioner Mattis Castillo, we would be glad to come back. We would love to have the connection, you know, at this level with the magnitude of investment, with the ability that we have to affect, you know, community engagement, resident first, and so forth. It'd be great to be connected.
Great, thank you.
Good suggestion. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am so glad that you asked that question because I remember before we had this process in place, and quite frankly, it was not well coordinated at all. And with the audit committee working hand in hand with this, really trying to figure out how we could get things done, because I also remember when I first came on the board, the state of the infrastructure in this county, and again, feeling kind of overwhelmed by that. And then saying, okay, well, what do we need to do? And really getting a handle on how do we get these things done in a methodical way, in a way that addresses some urgency in certain areas, but that we can have a path and a plan to go forward to get things where they need to be. And it isn't a quick process, but we are on that path here now. We got on that path when it came to the infrastructure and the buildings and so forth. And since we have formed this and really been keeping track of it, again, the audit committee coming to the board, we have made tremendous progress. And so it was, to me, really exciting to see this. But because I was kind of used to seeing and knowing that process, I kind of took it for granted now at this point as well. And so asking that question and really highlighting the work that is done here and what the difference that it really makes to our constituents, and the technology side of things now that's where it's at. So thank you, and I thank you as well for the work that you put in, and I like was it TAP app or whatever?
Tap.
The double.
Yes. Anyhow, because that's how we get things, that's how we move forward. So thank you.
O'Connor.
Just two final points, Mr. Chair, to Rich's comment and Commissioner Mattis-Castillo's question. So I think the goal will be to actually bring back some sort of a summary that both talks about where judgments may have been made to say this contract is in the peak of its life cycle. We don't want to bring it back through a process, as well as talking about what progress was made over the last year and where we want to go strategically. The goal would be to set that up a year from now before we bring this in next time. I think that's been a gap in our process. We kind of like bring this all in and say, let's talk about all of it in one day. And so that's something we've been planning on our end. And then the only other part, I want to just tie this back. We had a workshop on modernization led by Deputy County Manager Francois a little while ago. We're going to talk a lot about during the budget cycle the need to be enterprise-wide in how we think about modernization. Technology is one part of that. It is not the only part, right? It's this residents first policy, procedure, point of service, engaging our employees in the process, and bringing that together is actually a real big focus. So 3 years ago, we never talked about residents first when we would do our technology funding. We would do it as an infrastructure thing, and that's really changing. So more to come. I just wanted to highlight that connection for you now, that's a real big piece going on with where the work sits.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Roll call.
Carter.
Yes?
Huffman.
Aye.
Mattis Castillo.
Aye.
McGuire. Aye. Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
McDonough.
Aye. Item number 12, amendment to the Community Action Partnership of Ramsey and Washington Counties 2019
So moved.
appointments. We have a motion.
Second.
Second. Commissioner Huffman.
Just a real quick update. So Community Action Program I know is a board that many of you have served on before. And I just wanted to bring it to your attention that at the last board meeting policy was changing, so board of directors can serve 6 years, then take 1 year off, and then are eligible for another 6 years. So some of you might have thought you were termed out because you had served your 6 years, but I want you to know if you've been off for a year, you're now eligible for future service. So I just wanted to bring that up to your attention and thank Trista and Mary Jo for your service now.
I appreciate that, and, but I do think we still have one more commissioner to rotate through there before we start recycling.
I'll let you work on him.
Commissioner Ortega.
Don't let it go.
We'll keep that a secret.
I don't know how you managed it, but you stayed up. All right, roll call.
Carter,
Yes.
Huffman,
Aye.
Modis Castillo.
Aye.
McGuire. Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
McDonough.
Aye. Under policy, policy items is from the county manager, Ramsey County's vision, mission, and goals. County Manager O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to invite Policy Director Elizabeth Tolsman up just to say a few words, and I just want to acknowledge as she comes up that the formal adoption of this piece of our foundational structure really kicks off the 2-year budget process. It sets the direction from which we build and develop a budget to present to you in August. And so it's always an important moment to pause, reflect, and talk about where our vision, mission, and goals meet our values in day-to-day operating.
Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. It's my honor to present this policy item before you today. We are asking you to reaffirm our vision, mission, and goals. And I just want to share that this is not just words on a paper. It's a way of how we do business, a foundation for developing our budget process and our performance measure process as well. It's how we reflect our investments as we set our community indicators, our strategic priorities, which you will be hearing in a few weeks, and our overall strategic plan. It's the guiding post in how we define our organizational culture, in how we model our individual behaviors, and in how we make our operating decisions. It's also how we attract, retain, and develop talent to and within our organization, as this is where applicants often go to when they first apply for positions in the county and they're referred to during interviews. Most importantly, it's how we treat our residents at the point of service, as we alluded earlier today, and how we treat them regardless of where we're at in the organization, and how we make them feel as individuals and their families feel, whether they live, work, or play in Ramsey County. Commissioners, in the next few weeks, our service teams are working very hard to put together our county budget, and you will be hearing their presentations at the end of the summer. As I recite our vision, mission, and goals, please keep these in mind and hold us accountable in ensuring that our investments, innovation, and inequities are reflected in how we provide direct services to our community, when we convene our stakeholders, when we partner with our community, and when and where we need to lead courageously. The best advice someone gave me during my lowest and highest points in life is go to your faith, family, and friends. When I think of Ramsey County and its organization in times of distress and success, I say go to our vision, mission, and goals. It'll drive us to where we need to be and help us make the right decision. With that, I would like to recite our vision, mission, and goals and ask you to affirm it today. Our vision: a vibrant community where all are valued and thrive. Our mission: a county of excellence working with you to enhance our quality of life. Our 4 goals: 1, well-being. Strengthen individual, family, and community health, safety, and well-being through effective safety net services, innovative programming, prevention, and early intervention, and environmental stewardship. 2, prosperity. Cultivate economic prosperity and invest in neighborhoods with concentrated financial poverty through proactive leadership and inclusive initiatives that engage all communities in decisions about our future. 3, opportunity. Enhance access to opportunity and mobility for all residents and businesses through connections to education, employment, and economic development through our region. And finally, accountability. Model fiscal accountability, transparency, and strategic investments through professional operations and financial management. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Move approval?
Yeah, second.
Second. Any comments or Commissioner Carter?
I want to thank you for the expression of the vision and mission and goals and your summary of them. We are reaffirming them today because they do speak to our values and the manner in which the work that we are doing for all residents and citizens in our county is proceeding, I do also want to ask you a question about the underlying values and the work that you are doing in assessing those, and so that we will be prepared to restate those and present them to our community. Can you just briefly talk about that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Carter, and fellow commissioners, we are actually working organizational-wide as part of our TARP Theme 1, our organizational culture, and that's co-sponsored by Deputy County Manager Karen Francois and I. And we have a team that represents staff and leaders across the organization, and we're in the process of finaling those values at this moment. We'll be revealing it at our county-wide leadership. And there's two areas where values that we're working on is these values guide and how we behave individually. And these will be a countywide expectations of how we operationalize that, possibly through our performance measurement process, our evaluations. And the second part is how we guide our operating decisions, you know, how we serve our residents, our communities, and so forth. And we are really excited about these values because similar to our vision, mission, and goals, it's not just gonna be words on our paper. We're working very hard to not just define them and reflect them in our modern day that's reflective of our community through our experiences in working with community. And they resemble very closely in our vision, mission, and goals. They also reflect how we operate as well through our budget, our performance measurements, our strategic plan, and so forth. So we'll be very excited to review that to the community and the county very soon.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank you so much for restating all of these, and I know these are our vision, mission, and goals that we've been working on throughout my time here, and I just love the way that it's reflected in all of our departments and all of our work. When I go to the library board, when I go to the Resource and Recovery Committee, when I'm at Active Living, they all reflect these vision, mission, and goals. And I just think it's great that that our staff and our departments have come so far in really internalizing these so that we are really one county working for the benefit of all of our residents. So thank you, and kudos to you and your staff, but to the entire county staff that are really implementing these. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McGuire. If I may respond too, I get really excited when I'm meeting at people in offices and I see this hanging on their office or their cubicle. Most people look for the candy jar. I'm looking to see if people have this sitting on their wall.
Commissioner Huffman.
Just a quick comment that, you know, I've been in many organizations, and every organization has a vision, mission, and goal document, but I've never seen an organization refer to it and let it be part of its daily lives. It doesn't sit on a shelf. It's what we at staff, what you at staff are doing, and certainly us at the elected level are doing. I hear Commissioner Reinhardt talk about all four. Every speech I ever hear her give, she's talking about these goals, and so it's really important. I think you've done a great job of not just making this a document, but making it a living, breathing part of our DNA, if you will.
I want to take a moment here to recognize the work that this board has done to get here.
Yeah.
Because I can remember, and I don't mean for this to be critical, right? But all the good comments we've seen has come because of the work that this board is willing to do. There was a time when we had 7 goals. It just happened to be we had 7 commissioners, right? We got to 4, but we always ended up with 7, right? And then we would have, and then we would have, 15, 18 things underneath those. And it really made it hard for leadership and folks in the county to see themselves in that and understand what those connections were. And the work that we've done as a collective board in refining this and, really focusing in on these 4 goals, but then really having a strategy to focus in on. So that way, to the points that's already been raised, every employee in this county can see themselves in the mission and the vision. But they also see their role in accomplishing these goals through the strategies. And that takes a lot of work at this level to be able to do that, and it takes leadership, and I want to recognize each and every one of you for that. And then also recognize County Manager O'Connor, Elizabeth, and your team to providing us the information, providing us the opportunity to have those conversations about how best to align with what's needed in our community, what residents expect from us, and then providing that clear direction to all the staff in this county to be able to accomplish that. It's good work. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Well, and I think the other thing that is maybe not as transparent or as obvious to people. It's not that it's not transparent, but even our structure. Our structure changed with the service team model as we were modeling or figuring out, okay, how do we, what do we want from the teams, and not just the teams, but as a whole. So it was a process that was slow and sometimes very challenging, but at the same time, we all kept the vision of what we really were trying to achieve. And so I love the fact that we have service teams. So even when I was up talking about the Community Corrections Act, to be able to say, this is what the service team now includes. And seeing that connection between what the courts are doing and what we're doing in public safety and the different areas, financial assistance, all coming together to say, this is how we look at the community as a whole, and this is how we can tailor what we need to do. But it was a lot of hard work, and I appreciate the fact that you complimented us as a group. But it's transformed how we do our work here, and hopefully people can see that as they're interacting with the county.
Okay, thank you. Roll call. Oh, we have a motion. We had a motion, right?
Yeah, I
In a
did.
second, so roll call. Yep.
Carter,
Yes.
Huffman.
Aye.
Modis Castillo.
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
McDonough.
Aye. Elizabeth, thank you. All right, legislative update. Did they adjourn yet?
They have not adjourned yet. In fact, they are just coming up to the second committee deadline, Mr. Chair. So I know that a number of us continue to be down there on a continual basis to make sure that our legislation that we're taking the lead on gets through both the House and the Senate. If it got through one of the bodies by last week, by a week and a half ago, it has to get through the other body by this Friday in order for it to continue on. And these are the policy bills. If the bill has a financial implication, we do have some more time on that. And so our Community Corrections Act bill, which was just referenced, which I know that Commissioner Reinhardt has spent many hours at the Capitol on, it did clear both deadlines, and so that one is going to be moving forward. And so many of the bills that we needed to get through both deadlines are doing okay. Our issues now are with the finance bills, is whether we get funding for what we need, and that is still to come. But the budget targets did come out yesterday with the House, and they will on Friday with the Senate. And this is where each committee gets their target of what they can allocate. And this is going to also take into account the revised budget projections that came out, which were lower. Our forecast came in lower than originally was thought. So the committee budget numbers are a little bit lower, and this is where now all those finance bills have to fit within those committee budgets. And the committees are ready for that. So several finance committees are going to reveal their division reports in the next week. The property tax bill will come out on Friday. Representative Pinto's early childhood bill will come in later this week, and Representative Hornstein's transportation funding bill will be Monday or Tuesday of next week. So they were sort of ready. This is that familiar line. This will be considered for possible inclusion in a bill. This is where they decide what's all included. So they're working hard. I want to give, of course, kudos to our team down there of Jennifer O'Rourke and Claudia Brewington and Nick Riley, who are working, day and night down there, following our bills, making sure that they've got the hearings. And then, of course, to all of you who are down there a lot on these issues. So with that, I just want to, ask if anyone else has any issues that they want to comment on, anything they've been working on. I will just comment that we did pass today in our bills that we did support the AMC transportation funding resolution supports additional funding for additional resources for transportation, and that was good that we had talked about that we're asking all 87 counties to pass that resolution so that the legislature has a clear sense of where counties are at in needing transportation money. And speaking of transportation, Senator Chuck Weger yesterday had a meeting. He annually has a meeting with the Department of Transportation for Minnesota, and our own Ted Schoenecker was there with Public Works, and he invites his community to come and talk about the transportation issues. And it's always really interesting to get the cities in his area and the county and the state all talking about what needs to be done in that area. And they did come together, to prioritize, because the legislature, does like to see that prioritization. And I was saying, I wish that every area of our county, every senator might do that, just so that each area would come together and say, here's what we really need the legislature to look at. But that was a good meeting, and you've all heard in the news, and this was something I think we all supported. We didn't have it necessarily, wasn't an initiative of ours, but the hands-free bill has cleared both committees, both the House and the Senate now. So it'll be, it does look a little different, and so it'll be resolved in conference committee, but that's a big step for Minnesota, I think. So if anyone else has
Any
anything
other
else
updates?
they want to talk about, work they're
Commissioner
doing.
Carter?
Yes, I'd just like to mention that, as you all know, counties have been watching and working to help refine the African American Family Preservation and Child Welfare Disproportionality Act that's moving through the House and Senate at this point, and it will be heard in the House Human Services and Finance Committee this Thursday. The time I have is between 12:30 and 5 o'clock on this Thursday, so that's the big block. But if any of you are interested, counties have been working with the legislators and with DHS and also with community to shore up areas of the bill so that it can do its very best to address child welfare disproportionality for African American families who in the state have the greatest disproportionality, but also for all disproportionately represented groups. So that work is going on right at this point in time. I look forward to attending the hearing, and certainly others may be interested as well. Thank you.
Thanks for that update. Thanks for your work on that. Any other updates? Commissioner Carter, outside board and committee reports.
All right, thank you very much. I would like to talk about just a few things from last week and then highlight something coming up this week also. And first I'll mention that I was able to be at the Landmark Center this past week to witness incredible storytelling by our own Commissioner Mattis Castillo, who spoke of her life, told a story, actually, of her life, her work in service to 3 branches of the military, her lovely children, family, husband, and a special treat I didn't know was going to happen was that her husband also, Hector Mattis Castillo, was one of the storytellers. So I just have to applaud you as an excellent storyteller. Thank you for your many contributions to the armed services, to our safety, to our community, and just thank you for being such an amazing mom.
Thank you. Thanks for being there.
Indeed. I also was able to attend a session this past week with the Burns Institute. As you know, we are working with the Burns Institute to focus on the ongoing reform in our juvenile justice systems. And it was again, well-attended session. I think it's the 3rd in the series. Yes, the 3rd in the series. And we'll be continuing to work with all of the partners in our justice system as we re-envision and reimagine and recreate all of the work that we're doing so that the lives of all of our families, especially our children, will be better. Let's see. I want to talk about the upcoming Promise Neighborhood graduation of the first cohort of the People's Fellowship. And just highlight that that is happening on Wednesday, March 27th. It will be at 5:30 at the Wilder Center. We are in partnership with the Promise Neighborhood, and the People's Fellowship is about developing leadership amongst those in our community who can help to move the ball forward for children. So you might want to attend. And the other thing I wanted to mention was just the HHS hearing on HF 342, which is the Child Welfare Disproportionality Act.
Thank you. Commissioner McGuire.
Well, I want to talk about a few more things than a few. No,
You want to do
I
more?
talk about a lot of things.
You want to do a lot?
You said you wanted to talk about a few things. No, I won't. I will be brief, Mr. Chair, but I just have to.
I always get worried
I
when
know,
people
I
start
know.
off
When
with,
people
I'm
start
going
off
to
with,
be
I want to
brief.
talk about a lot of things. I know.
We know you can do
Commissioner
just-
McGuire, you have the floor. Go for
I
it.
just have, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have to compliment our staff that we all know is out in our communities all the time at all of our community meetings. And just this week, there were just so many opportunities for our county staff to be out, just talking about what good work we're doing. And first of all, I want to commend our county manager, because a week and a half ago, he was actually out, well, a couple weeks ago, he was out in Roseville doing a County 101 for the Roseville League of Women Voters. And I know we're going to get to the fact that he was honored on Thursday, and I hope that the chair talks about that. But thank you so much for all of your work to our county manager. And then on Tuesday, our county attorney, John Choi, did a human trafficking presentation out in New Brighton. And on Thursday, Carrie Collins did a whole economic development presentation for New Brighton Business Council, which was really amazing, and just fielded all of the questions of things that are going on with our public work, with our economic development. And so just thanks to her for doing that. And then Ted Schenecker was at the Chuck Uyghur meeting, and Brian Isaacson was at our Rice and Larpenteur meeting yesterday as well. So our staff is out and about in the community in just amazing ways. So just thanks so much for all of that. Also, our TAB met, the Transportation Advisory Board met, and we just moved forward on a number of really important issues. And we got updates on the Riverview Corridor and the Gold Line, and it's just great to hear the things that are moving forward, and the TAB is supportive of those issues moving forward. So that was great. Then Library Board met, and I want to just give a shout out to one of our longtime staff people who's retiring. You know, we have this great longevity in our staff, and Julie Neville, who has been with us for, I think, over 30 years in either property management or in our library system. So her retirement is, they're having an event this Thursday, and then I think next week as well. But I just want to give her a shout out that she has done such great work. That's the work of Julie Neville. So thank you, Julie, for all of her work. And then I was fortunate to be able to speak at the Fetal Alcohol Syndrome Day at the Capitol. It was a breakfast where we just highlighted, of course, the implications of drinking while you're pregnant, and of chemical abuse while you're pregnant, and just how that can be prevented. And I was just glad to be able to bring attention to that issue. So, and our state advisory board on joint detention alternatives met, and that's just great that it's a statewide effort. You know, we're doing our own efforts there, but we're giving counsel to other counties that are working in that area. So, and just, I think someone else might mention it, but just to give a shout out to the Waters Off breakfast, which is going to be this Saturday. So that's from 7 to 9 at the Minneapolis Plumbers are doing, it's all the plumbers, and it's at the Roosevelt Radisson Hotel, 7 to 9 on Saturday morning, Waters Off, where they go out to the community and help residents with their plumbing issues for no cost. So it's a great shout out to our plumbers.
Good. Thank
I
you.
have a question on that, actually,
Yeah.
because I've got it on my calendar from 6 to 8.
Oh, is it really? Okay, well, that's maybe
Coffee
better.
at 6:30.
Maybe I put it on when I was in a different time zone.
6:30, and
Is it
starts
6
at
to 8?
7.
Oh, maybe that's why I miss it all the time. No. I get there and it's over. No, okay.
Well, it looks like
Well,
everything
your
gets started
invitation
really
says
I know. 6 to 8. Yeah. Okay.
They've got Mary Jo's
Good.
actually doing the
Good.
plumbing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I think you're right. I think 6 to 8 is the better is the time, and it does start early, and they are out of there by 8. I mean, let me tell you, they're out and about. So, thank you for that.
Commissioner Tackett, Commissioner Huffman, Commissioner Reinhardt.
Well, yes, by the way, following that at 10 o'clock on Saturday is the Rethink Poverty.
Yes.
And so I intend to go to that as well. It's in Roseville, at the Roseville High School,
Yeah.
1240 County Road B2 West.
Yes, thank you.
So-
I'll be there as well.
So that is coming up. Well, we had.
That one's at 12:30. Do you have 12:30 for that one?
Chad?
Oh, you did 10. Okay. I have it for a different time, but we should double
It
check
ends
that
at
time.
12:30.
Yeah, the Rethink Poverty.
Right.
Yeah, is at 12:30.
No.
Oh,
It's 10 to 12:30.
Oh, 10 to 12:30, okay. Well, okay.
Either that
then.
or my
Yeah,
calendar's
well, we'll
all
check it out.
messed up.
We'll check
Okay.
it out. Thanks.
Okay. Now I'm all flustered here. All right. Well, I just wanted to bring up a couple of things, and I know that there were a lot of things that we all attended together, but there were a number of things with Greater MSP. They had their investors meeting the quarterly investors meeting on Friday, where the new CEO, Peter Frosch, took over that day. That's why he started on a Friday, and did a fantastic job. And a few days before that, Commissioner McDonough and I were able to be at the reception that they had for Michael Langley, and where he has taken Greater MSP over the last 7 years. Anyhow, so it was a lot of celebrating and a lot of inspirational messages going forward. There were, and then and Mr. Chair, I assume you will embarrass the county manager well.
Absolutely.
Or maybe I'll leave that up to Commissioner Montes Castillo. Anyhow, but it was so fun to be there and to meet your family. It really was. But there were two things that I really wanted to comment about. One was I was asked to speak at the Mung College Prep Academy. And I mean, what a gem.
Yeah.
That school is absolutely amazing. And just talking about what a county commissioner does. And the hour went by so fast, and I had great questions, but I was so impressed with just the organization and how the teachers and the students and everybody interacted. And quite frankly, I was amazed at how big it was. It's just a really amazing center in our community, and I really did not know it was there. I mean, I saw the sign as we went near the state fairgrounds, but that was about it. So I was so thrilled to be there, and I do hope that they ask me back again. And then the other thing was I was at the graduation at the Ramsey County Correctional Facility for the culinary program graduates. And they have a couple of different certification programs that they go through. And this one was for culinary or food service. And the 4 graduates were so fun to listen to. And then they had you didn't get to vote, but you kind of had the Top Chef thing going on, where they each prepared an entree. And so you got to taste all of the different things. And the food was fantastic. So there were 4 that graduated, and 1 already had gotten a job. And the second one, when he left the graduation ceremony, was going for an interview. It's got cognitive behavior, and then also the building of the skills. And it was so great to be there. And I think one of the graduates summed it up pretty well when he said that it wasn't only inspirational, it was transformational for his life.
Good.
And so I did say that they should invite commissioners to these graduations because, it's kind of one of those things where they do all this great work, and the investment of staff time and the connections that people make to really transform individuals' lives is so apparent when you're in that room, but they just assume that we all know about this. And when I said, well, you would have commissioners there, because it's a way that we can see how the policy decisions that we make and the investments that we make, how it can truly change people's lives. And so I believe that we will probably all get invitations to the different graduation ceremonies so that you can, we can see what we're doing here and our vision, mission, and goals in action in something as simple as that, but as important as that. So I just really wanted to share that with you and how exceptional it was to be able to be part of that.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Mattis-Castillo, please.
Yes, I just wanted to touch briefly and do my weekly shout out to our awesome Public Works Department that is working hard. We had a community meeting at the Community School of Excellence on Larpenteur after the pedestrian fatalities that were earlier this spring was finally rescheduled this weekend. Public Works was there to really engage and hear the community about the importance of our road safety and taming our traffic on our roads. And so sharing the plan to make a 4-3 conversion on Larpenteur Avenue, and the community is very excited and has incredible gratitude for our Public Works to really work with them. So appreciate the ongoing work that they're doing to engage community and to really hear that need. Mary Jo briefly mentioned, but we had our coalition meeting of the Rice Larpenteur Coalition. It's really exciting that we are really taking that area of our community, which is the edges of our community of Maplewood, Roseville, and St. Paul, as well as the commissioners of Ramsey County, to say, how do we invest in this area? How do we engage the community, make sure we're meeting the needs, and it really follows our goals that Elizabeth mentioned earlier about modeling forward-thinking investment and fiscal accountability and into areas of economic development. So exciting and glad to have Commissioner Reinhardt and Commissioner McGuire there as well as the mayors from each of the cities. So it is truly something that's moving forward, and just wanted to share that. And then we continue to do our work across the region around unsheltered homelessness. This hasn't fallen off because the weather has gotten better. In fact, we're rolling up our sleeves and working even harder and working with Hennepin County and the city of Minneapolis in partnership with St. Paul and Ramsey County to say, how do we address homelessness from a regional approach to really make headway to end this. As it warms up, we can anticipate that more and more folks will be coming out and that we'll see visibly about how great the need is. So we continue to do that work, and I appreciate the county staff involved and Commissioner McDonough, your leadership on this issue as well. So,
thank you. A couple things. One, I'm just going to reinforce what Trista's talked about on the unsheltered, because if we recall, both cities had an encampment issue last year.
Yeah.
And that is, so warm weather doesn't necessarily mean things get better. And both of those encampments bring their own issues. And being prepared this year, at least in the East Metro, about making sure that we're meeting the needs in the community for the unsheltered, and we don't end up in a situation like we did last year is going to be really important. Wanted to close the loop on the waters off, because the action we took earlier. All the referrals that the plumbers get come through Community Action Partnership.
Yep.
And that's a really strong connection and a strong piece here about where they're getting the referrals to ensure that they're getting out and helping folks in the community that need the most help here with the Waters Off project. And then I think everybody wanted me to do a call out and to our county manager here. You know, we talked about it when the announcement was made, but last Thursday, 30 of us got to come and celebrate with Ryan, and that sense of pride from all of us and seeing one of our leaders being recognized on a regional level. And I think the importance of that recognition even goes farther, where typically those recognitions, 40 under 40 like that, you certainly come from the private sector and the Fortune 500 companies and young startups, and even sometimes in the nonprofit. But to have a public sector leader be recognized in that group is quite an accomplishment. We're awful proud of you, and as a number of folks said, it was great to have 3 tables worth of people there throughout your life and experiences to be there to celebrate with you and enjoy that moment. And the other thing I just want to add, because it does bring a sense of pride to all of us for that to happen, but it also inspires when a leader within an organization continues to demonstrate and be recognized. And I know you don't do the work for the recognition, but when you get that recognition, it inspires each and every one of these folks out here to do better and to be and being a part of that team that you lead is really important. So I don't want this to be an embarrassment moment. I want this to be a moment of pride and respect for the work that you've done and the recognition that you've earned.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And with that, I've saved the last word for you, Ryan, County Connections.
I compiled a list of embarrassing moments of all of you. I'm going to recite it into the camera. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for the kind words from all of you and for the chance to be there last week. And on behalf of everybody else in the organization, these things are one together. We celebrate together, we grieve together. It's one of the great parts of working for a big organization. It brings all sorts of challenges, but it was really a neat experience for my family and friends, but also just to get to celebrate with everybody I get to go to work with every day. I greatly appreciate that.
The best moment was my conversation with your father.
I haven't had a chance to round back with him yet, but I'm still employed this Tuesday. No one took a vote, so we're good. A couple other shout outs. I want to give a shout out to our Emergency Communications Center. They were recognized a week ago at their statewide conference, the APCO NINA MSA conference. I'm sorry, I cannot tell you what that acronym stands for. You can go next year. For the resilience and teamwork they demonstrated during the November 23rd, 2018 house explosion, you may remember, that happened on that 600 block of Payne Avenue. We fielded over 200 phone calls in a 45-minute window, and in that same time frame, there were 60 other calls that came in. Like, the world doesn't stop just because of one incident. So a huge shout out to our Emergency Comm Center. They're always a great reminder that government is, sometimes silent and around, and you don't always realize it till you pick up the phone and you really hope the other end of that phone answers. And these folks always answer and pass with flying colors. On the flooding, if you haven't looked out the window, the Mississippi River is going up. I'll start with the good news, I guess, on it, which is the record flood from 1965 was approximately 26 feet. There was about a 1 in 6 chance we were going to break that. We're not going to break that. So we're not going to break that. Judd somewhere is telling me, don't do what you just did. I think right now the river, so 16 feet becomes considered a flood. 18 feet, you see impacts to Shepherd Road and Warner Road. That's about where we're at right now. 20 feet is when you start to see bigger impacts, kind of how the whole flood rising thing happens. We're seeing a crest estimate right now somewhere around 20 feet. That's down from a week ago. Mother Nature has absolutely helped us out in terms of the freeze thaw and not getting a lot of rain over the last week. So the next month and a half is kind of touch and go. If you got major storm events, the ground is so saturated, there's very little that we can do to control for that. But in the short term, big shout out to our Emergency Comm Center, but staff across the organization that have helped with sandbagging efforts around the East Building, parking lot areas, Union Depot, pumping. When you stand up an incident command structure and you've done this work for a while, you see when it goes good and bad. This is one of those times it's gone really well. And that's a testimony to the leaders across this organization for getting good information out and for working with our cities to partner whenever we can. So big shout out there, and we'll keep sharing updates with you as information becomes available. If you want more on the flood stuff, my From the County Manager column this week is dedicated to talking about the different efforts underway, so you can see more. That'll go out later this afternoon. Finally, this just, because not everything always ends up being unicorns and rainbows either. I just want to acknowledge, as a follow-up to last month and or earlier this month, whenever it was, and the news stories and the video we saw related to the incident in our jail. We have a racial equity leadership team, and then we have racial equity action teams that are forming at our service team levels that talk about tough issues and work on, at times, big issues around inclusion and welcoming nature of our organization and how you build a strong place. And other times we talk about really tough stuff, like what kind of showed up on TV, right? And what does that mean when your organization is a part of said story? And I don't have anything real specific here other than to acknowledge that a number of employees on one of those action teams got together with members of the community that they work with, and they wrote a letter back to some of our leadership, and they asked some real good questions and important questions about how do we process this work at times like this, and how can we help going forward? How do we build an organization where we have a role in helping to build it? And that's a piece where I kind of wanted to acknowledge it today because it takes time sometimes to get a written response back. And I wanted to acknowledge here and in front of everybody else that, first of all, it takes bravery to write a letter like that and send it to the county manager and put your name on it. And yet it also shows, I think, growth in our organization to be willing to engage in important conversations like this and recognize that even the way we all see certain things play out is not the same for every single person. We all bring experience and life experience and the experience of our parents and friends and everybody else into work. And that all plays out at moments like that. And I think we need to try and make space for that and acknowledge that and figure out a way forward where we build a stronger collective. When we then chart a stronger collective together, it really comes out. So shout out to employees and the community members who are serving on our racial equity action team, for our staff who helped work on figuring out what's the right way to try and put this together and ask some important questions. And I'll work with our deputy county managers and the sheriff's office and share with all of you some of that response as it comes out. But I just want to let you know that conversation continues. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, after we adjourn, we'll meet in 10 minutes downstairs in room 220 for the first of 2 executive sessions, which are closed to the public. The first one will be potential litigation related to Rice Creek Commons. And then immediately after that, we'll have a executive session also closed to the public. Security briefings, recommendations regarding public service infrastructure and facilities. 1:30, we'll have a workshop. This will be the first presentation from Ramsey County Sheriff Fletcher about moving forward on body-worn cameras and what that looks like in his proposals here, working with the county board and the community on body-worn cameras for deputies and correctional officers. So with that, 10 minutes downstairs, room 220. We're adjourned.